Để ấy.
Hi, Prof. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Hello? Yeah.
Okay, you're in. Okay, right. All right, great.
Okay.
If we have
just,
9 minutes till 4.
Okay, I'm just waiting for the platform to be open.
Right.
Hello. We're
Hello.
going to start the webinar and allow participants to join. So please get ready.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Welcome to
Waalaikumsalam
your,
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
welcome to your last session of CPD Unlimited event. My name is Alia Ahamad and I am the moderator for this session. And on behalf of PAM Education Committee, we would like to thank all of you for sparing your precious time with us on Saturday afternoon. Today, we have an amazing presentation on the pursuit of academic excellence in architectural education by Professor Architect Dr. Julaihi bin Wahid. The rationale of this topic is that the academic profession in Malaysia has been undergoing pressure to pursue excellence in higher education, especially in architectural education. Considering our values, diversities, and orientation, we might have different interpretations of academic excellence. Various definitions of what constitutes academic excellence have created diverse perspectives on this issue today among academics, practitioners, and students. However, there is no ideal education indicators or specified yardsticks to evaluate academic excellence in architectural education. As such, today's presentation shall provide a broader and more integrated view of the nature and development of excellence in architectural education in Malaysia. But before we dive into the presentation, I would like to prompt if you have any questions during the presentation, you may use the chat box or use the Q&A icon at the bottom. We will attend to the questions during the Q&A session. The format of this session, the format of this 1.5 hour session is that we are going to break this session into two parts. The first part, we will have a 60-minute presentation by our presenter, and the second part of this session will be a 30-minute Q&A. So now allow me to briefly introduce our honorable presenter. We have all the way from Sarawak, Professor Architect Dr. Julaihi bin Wahid. He is a professor in architecture at the Department of Architecture, Faculty of Built Environment at University Malaysia Sarawak. Formerly, he taught at the Department of Architecture at the School of Housing, Building and Planning, University Science Malaysia. Prior to that, he has served at Unku Omar Polytechnic and Polymas, as well as a visiting professor at University Brawijaya and University Sumatera Utara in Republic of Indonesia. After completing his service at University Science Malaysia, he served at various higher institutions locally and internationally. He received his PhD in Housing and Architecture from the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, Newcastle, England, his Master Architecture in Community and Urban Design from Kansas, his Bachelor Architectural Studies from Washington, Diploma in Architecture from UTM, and Certificate in Civil Engineering from Polytechnic Unku Omar. He is also a registered architect and running his own sole prop practice in Kuching, Sarawak. In 2019, he was honored with the Architectural Education Award by Lembaga Architect Malaysia. Please join me in welcoming our presenter today. How are you, Prof?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
I hope you're doing well. And now let's get
Pretty good. Yeah.
and now let's get the presentation started. Without further ado, Prof, the platform is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I share the slides and I start with the presentation. Firstly, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia as well as Lembaga Architect Malaysia for their invitations. And also it is an honor for me to have this opportunity to share my knowledge and informations with all the listeners. And I also like to thank my colleague at University Malaysia Sarawak and also USM, especially my dean, Professor A.R. Nur Akmal, for their support and their encouragement. Okay, I'll try to share my screen here. Well, I have the opportunity to look through at the various topics related to architectural educations in Malaysia as well as in the world. And I decided to choose this topic with which I think that there is some relationship with my own journey as well as with what I'm trying to relate closely with what happened after the post-globalization as well as the millennium, and also the track of architectural education in Malaysia. I try to separate the topics into these sections. I would like to cover a little bit on the overview of architectural education. That is the journey of an architect. And also I try to survey the radical strategies of architectural education worldwide, especially in America, where I had spent quite some time in the States, and also the cases of academic transformations, which is not only happening in Malaysia, it happens in the world, as well as with the consortia of Bologna process and Washington Accord, and with all this encouragement that every corner of the world trying to focus closely with the IR 4.0, these are some of the issues that I try to relate closely. I hope I can manage to squeeze the time. Please bear with me. Some of the discussion is a bit entangled with a certain part of certain issues, because in architecture, we are not going to talk on architecture alone. We have to relate with what happened with other industry, what happened with other discipline. As an architect, we are only the end user in certain part of the digital progress. As a result of this, I have to touch a little bit on what the IR 4.0 and what happened with the radical strategies in education, as well as education 4.0 has been discussed by other educationists. As I mentioned here, there is some relation with the curious position of architectural education. Yeah, we always relate with the track of architecture from the past and also the future. And then we cannot focus the future because the paradigm of the future is sometimes unknown. As an architect, we visualize through our imaginary connotations in terms of what is the world going to be. And then some of us, we tend to change the world once we graduate. So these are some of the issues that I try to convey here. And for the children today, they are lucky because like during our time, we do not know our destiny. And even our parents never ask what we want to do. And also like today, most of the children, they have their own destinations. You know, they almost their own destination. They even know their interest is. Some even tell their parents at the age of 18, at the age of 10 or 12, they say to their parents, I want to be a food blogger. Like during our time, we never think about that kind of senses, you know. Today in Malaysia, as I mentioned here, I still remember in 1989, our late Uncle Aziz, he said that education one day in Malaysia will be for all. Going to university is no longer a privilege. So this is true. In 1989 until today, 2021, this is true. And with this opportunity that I try to recap and show us my own self-reflections with the availability of all the private and public universities around in Malaysia. Yeah, all this list of private colleges, private universities, public universities, and some franchise programs, yeah, twin programs. It is especially in architecture. So these are opportunity for our kids, opportunity for the next generations. But who will control? Who will monitor? What is their destination? Is architecture a dying profession? These are the issues that might be, I try to touch a little bit. As I mentioned here, when you take architecture, you enroll in architecture, you do not know your destiny. Architecture is sometimes unknown to first-year students, second-year student, even when you are third-year student. I said architecture is unknown because when you enroll in architecture, when you are in the first year, people ask you, can you design a house? You can sketch, but you are not qualified. Can you calculate this? You can calculate. You see? Can you memorize the theory? No, none of us can memorize the theory. That is what I said, that architecture is unknown. When you look at the first year student, the second year student, and the third year student, architecture is some sort like a late bloomers. We grow up slowly, you see. And especially during our time, we do not know what is an architect, who is an architect. We've seen people around us, boat makers, carpenters, and so on, yeah? But we do not know what is the role of an architect, who is an architect. So what is an architect going to do with what they have, the knowledge they have? Even when they graduated after 5-year program, they cannot be called architect. Until they pass the part 3, then they can call architect. Then they can practice. So that is all the journey that we go through. Especially during our time, you see, the first generation of architects, we do not know who are the people that become architects. We knew at that time when I was at University of Technology Malaysia, I knew Hijaz Kasturi. Yeah, I knew Jimmy Lim. That are the 2 persons that I knew. But beyond that, until today, you see, there are generations of architects. Now they're entering the 4th generations of architects. If we take 20 to 25 years as one generation, as in America, the first generation, Louis Sullivan, and the second generation, the Louis Icahn, and then the 3rd generation, the New York 5, and now so on and so forth until the 5th, 6th, or 7th, 8th generations of architects in America. But in Malaysia, these are the generation of architects. Then if we take these 25 years, we'll go through and look at architecture as a discipline and architecture as a knowledge that is being offered by the university, what we term as a education provider. Yeah? Architecture, even parents who knew about architecture and their son or daughter enrolled in architecture, the long hours they spend in the studio, long hours they spend to do the work, and then their expectation is unknown. They always ask this question, and some sort like the giving pressure to the courses and then giving pressure to the professional body, and the question on and on and on until today. We ask ourselves, is our syllabus ready for the industry? Is our syllabus good enough? Or what happened to the world outside? Is our syllabus behind time? These are what the question being asked by quite a number of educationists, the practitioner, as well as some students who are bright enough, they ask this question. But don't worry, if you look at what happened in Malaysia, yeah, we are not behind anything in terms of knowledge. The Washington Accord and the Bologna process started in 2003, where we enrolled as the provisional member. And then although the Washington Accord and Bologna process was started in 1989, but within that period from 1989 to 2003, didn't much changes. And with that, Lembaga Architect Malaysia, they always monitor the process, they always maintain the quality. Yeah? They even produce in 2013 what we call Green Book manual. I will not only determine the role of Lembaga, but it is very important to monitor the education in Malaysia, architectural education, so that we are not behind what is happening in the States, what has happening in Europe. Yeah? Because even in the States, those people, they try to do the research again. I will mention this one here later on, done by Beatrice Colomina. and also the University of Florida. They try to separate the practice and also the education. And then for the practice, they want to look at the practice, how far the education influenced the practice. And then what happened, what is the implication of the practice as a result of the education. But for us, we are very lucky. The Lembaga Architect Malaysia and the Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia, the Institute and both the Board of Architecture, we always work hand in hand. At the same time, we also monitor the universities and also the syllabus, and then our syllabus become more structured and then become more transparent, and even the process of accreditation become more transparent. And then, but in the end, we have to look back. What are the skills of the student that we produce? What are the attitude of the student that we produce? And then how the behavior of the students that is from the traditional provision of the knowledge until today, and we'll see how the disparity between maybe 80s, 90s, the year 2000, now 2021. As I mentioned here, after a certain period of time, we'll look back and we look again the syllabus and might be what are the future of architectural education, as well as what is the future of an architect. Yeah, I mean, in some countries, they said that architecture is a dying profession. But for us, a new nation that was born in 1957, we just reached independence for 62 years. And then we'll see and look back what happened within this 62 years, how it influenced our education. And then there's some other institute or higher institution in America themselves, after 100 years, they still ask the same questions. Yeah, and then for us, as I mentioned to you just now, that the intake, the syllabus, the accreditation is very transparent. Like in Europe, the Bologna process, they're still having difficulties in determining who can enter architecture. Like us, it is very clear. Either you're from Form 6 after STP, either you're from diploma, or either you're from A level, and there is those who have been working for quite a number of years. We call Saluran F. Those who have been working with the industry for so many years with their SPM, and then they can enter the university, but they have to start all over again. So it is quite clear in terms of the norm in Malaysia. Yeah, and if I look back at the architecture education in relation to the globalization and the post-millennium, we cannot run away from all this because it has to transform the world, either in economy, either in education, in almost in everything. And this globalization, it is not only pressure the specific countries, it also influences the education that will benefit the West. We should remember that. Even when we want to join the Washington Accord in 2003, we are given as a provisional member. They still evaluate us in a certain aspect. Might be some of the requirements and factors to be a full membership that will benefit them. These are the things that we have to remember also. This global effect of the globalization towards education and the nations, either in politics, in economics, the architect, they should open their eyes. We're not only short sendiri, design. You kena tahu what happened around the world, what happened in the world politics, what happened in the industry. Yeah, and don't just think in terms of architects, design, and you forgot about it. All right, and then these are what are the contributions of the world in architecture, and what are our contributions in relation to the industry, as well as what's happening around us. We should remember all this. Yeah, as I touched a little bit on this scenario in terms of the digital technology, yeah, that those countries who has the power not to bully, and also not to keep the secret of the technology for the third world or developing world. And for those who have the capital, the innovation, the shareholders, and so on, this will affect our education as well, our labor, yeah, our mobility. These are as well as the job market and so on. But sometimes, as architecture students, none of us care about this. Yeah, and even lecturers, they don't even care what happened to globalization, what happened to the post-globalization, what happened to the post-millennium, why this happening? Yeah, that is the reason. Some of this scenario, we have to get intact with architecture education and look back, and why the syllabus is like this, why the lembaga monitor this way. Yeah, these are the things that maybe can be a good point for us to recapitulate our mind again. And then, as I mentioned to you, IR 4.0, how much IR 4.0 influence our education? How much IR 4.0 influence architecture, influence education as well? And how many of us really understand what's going on with IR 4.0 in relations to the mobility of the architects in the future? Yeah, and then what happened in terms of the secrecy of the software that we use today? And then is it relevant? Or are we far behind from what's happening in the advanced countries? Yeah, even if we look at the chart here, I try to simplify this. The Ministry of Education and Lembaga Architect Malaysia, they work hand in hand to make sure that the quality assurance of our education is intact. And then they also respond to what has been happening around the world in terms of the Washington Accord and Bologna process. And then for the educational provider, and then what are their preparations in terms of the facilities, the syllabus, the students, the lecturers. And then in terms of the students, it is very clear the intake for the student is already transparent. And then the syllabus, we have to look back how many years for us to revise the syllabus. How many times we revise the syllabus according to the CQI, yeah? And then also the lecturers. Who are the lecturers? Are the lecturers qualified to teach architecture? And then those lecturers who has a Bachelor of Architecture with Part 3, where do they stand? Are they equipped with the knowledge with what happened in terms of psychology in architecture, behavioral studies in architecture, the theory of architecture, yeah? And then the theory of architecture ranging from the Ruskin up to Vitruvius until today. And then the syllabus of architecture. And those who monitor the program, those who monitor the syllabus, are they well equipped in terms of monitoring this? And then do they know that the changes around the world, where some of the universities, when they have history 1, history 2, history 3, and then the history 3, it is coincide with the changes in the world, with the buildings and philosophy and the building materials and the architects, the thinking of architects after the post-millennium, Zaha Hadid and so on. Where do we put them? Yeah, and then the same with the subjects that we change in terms of the strategies to simplify the subject so that the student can adapt and understand clearly. However, there are some, those who monitor the syllabus, they say, oh, they are too traditional in terms of architectural education. So these are the questions that we talk about excellence, a pursuit of excellence. So if we still keep on thinking of architecture as a traditional discourse based on what happened in during the first generation of architects in Malaysia, until today, we didn't change. We are not going to answer with what has happening due to globalization, due to millennium, due to the industry. Yeah. So what happened? These are some of the questions that I try to show and share with you and try to throw it. Might be later on, some of you might question me about all this. I try to answer. If I cannot answer, I will ask someone else. Yeah. And in some other discipline, they try to diversify the subjects, either interdiscipline or multidiscipline. And the importance of this multidisciplinary education, it has been debated and has been imposed and been trialed so many times in some other universities. Yeah. Then, like some other disciplines, like the healthcare, yeah, like education program, they are very sensitive about all this multidiscipline, interdiscipline. And like architecture, are we going to go for parallelism in terms of the discipline of architecture? It must be straightforward architecture. If you divert a bit, you are not an architect. You cannot become a qualified architect and cannot taking part 3 and so on. So we have to look about these matters again. Yeah. So architecture, we cannot be too confined, yeah, in terms of our thinking. And then we have to look also what happened around the world. Okay. Like the engineering, they combine with electronic, mechanical, digital, and then they produce one type of discipline to meet the present requirements. As in the States, most of the American universities curriculum, they are well equipped to restudy all this discipline that can benefit the industry, can benefit and diversify the job opportunities. This is important because in the future, the population of the world, 7.8 million people, with the pace of urbanization, 2.3% to 2.5%. And then the growth rate of the population, 2.3 to 2.4. And then the population by 2025, we'll see that by 10 billion people. What about the job opportunities? Yeah? If we architects thinking just like the first generations, so we have to look back and try to consider this. All right? These are some of the opinion from me. I hope you can bear with me. Yeah. Maybe some of the questions that I threw here might be irrelevant. So at least I just share with all of you. And more and more questions, like in sometimes, yeah, sometimes not long ago, but 1 or 2 years ago, some people, they ask the question of higher education in Malaysia. Our higher education in Malaysia is irrelevant. And the professor in Malaysia is not equipped enough with knowledge to teach all the discipline. So if we judge just by giving a passing comment without evaluating and without doing research, what happened around the world, and then we look back our syllabus, the model of other syllabus, is it suitable or not for our nations? And then if it's suitable, we ask Lembaga, we ask MOE. Lembaga, those people over there, they are practitioners, they are educationists, they are well balanced, yeah? And then the number of credits, even the people question also, why BSc 120 credits? Why not 130? Why not 100? Why not 80? It depends. That is the reason why the Green Book, they give a very clear indications in terms of the measurement of units. Because these are the questions that raised by people outside, not among architects. Now, even some architects, they question this. They are, the student of this university is not good. The student of that university is not good. That is just a passing comment, okay? So they keep on thinking, oh, we are not preparing for the future. Even some of the lecturers in America, they said that the paradigm of the future is unknown, okay? We tend to expect the unknown. Then we think about the future with the futuristic buildings, yeah? But there are some universities, they still teach some subjects that we consider irrelevant. In 1990, there are schools in America, they questions about is history of architecture relevant or not to be taught at the university in 1990. In 1990, that is the beginning of the application of computer. A computer introduced at Cornell University and computer being used at the Princeton University. Then some other universities, those not Cornell or Princeton, the question is history of architecture relevant? Don't be surprised if you look at the syllabus in Princeton, they still study the Roman architecture. Yeah. In Kansas, they still study vernacular architecture. Like us, are we left behind or are we too behind? Yeah. These are some of the question that I try to raise, all about that appear. Some it is just a hearsay and so on. But generally, we have to consider for the lecturers at the present moment, we are teaching the 21st century student. The 21st century students are not similar with 1960s students, not similar with 1980s students. This has been looked back by some of the educationists. Yeah. So in architecture, during the previous time, yeah, the beginning of architecture, we still consider that apprenticeship is relevant. Is it relevant today? Some of the principal architects do not know how to use beam. Some of the principal architects do not know how to use parametric. And then if we use this type of system, is it work today? And then in terms of accreditations, in the competitions among those who already graduated and they compete in the market, they must be equipped with all this knowledge. And then do we need a radical strategies of architectural pedagogy? Yeah. And then who should responsible for the production, management, and governance of architectural education? Is it the Board of Architects or is it the Ministry of Education? So why is this important? It relates to what I had mentioned earlier. Yeah. As I proceed with this one, I mentioned that we are teaching the 21st century students. And then these are the views that has been researched by our next door UITM lecturer in education, yeah, Dr. Anika Abdul Aziz. She did a research and looked at the 9 trends of the education 4.0. Education 4.0, it is not being researched by the architects, it is researched by the educationists. And then among these 9 trends, which of these trends fit architects, fit architecture, fit architectural education? So we have to look at this. Yeah, these are the 9 trends that being listed by Anika, yeah, Dr. Anika, in her paper. Yeah, she tries to look at the ideas for teaching. And in these ideas for teaching is not only in education per se, it is related very much to all kind of discipline, either engineering, geography, planning, architecture, yeah, or any kind of courses. And in architecture, if you look at from number 1 up to number 9, it is very much relevant. Yeah, and what is our preparations in relation to teaching the 21st century students? By looking at the education 4.0, what is our preparations in terms of the provider, the university, the Ministry of Education, Lembaga Architect Malaysia, and then if you look at the all this software, the digital device, the gadget, and so on. And then what happened in terms of the R.0 related to urbanism. That is the most critical and appropriate in architecture. Yeah, like artificial intelligence, we always heard about this. We talk about robots only. No, it is not only robots. In terms of privacy and security of the digital divide, it is not only in a certain digital appliances, but it is the role of the government to look at the privacy and security of our internet system. And then, are we ready for this? Yeah, we talk about 5Gs. And then, what does we understand about 5Gs? Who monitor the 5Gs? Are we ready for the 5Gs? And then in terms of transportations, yeah, in terms of Internet of Things that we relate closely with what happened in R.0 in relation to education right now, when we look at the education where the students cannot come to the class face to face, we using a certain kind of platform. So what is our preparation? Some people climbing up the trees, climbing up the mountains to get the line, to get the signal. And then these are all about education. And then we go back to our preparation in terms of the future, 2025. In Indonesia, they are preparing for this. In Philippines, they are preparing for this. For us, are we doing the same thing? They are talking about the smart city. They are talking about compact city. In Hong Kong, they are talking about compact city. In Singapore, they're talking about compact city. How to relate compact city in terms of transportation, in terms of Internet of Things, in terms of all this digital solution and so on. Who is going to monitor this? So we architects, where do we stand? In UAE, the subjects on urbanism, they are very, very seriously, they look at the subject of urbanism, okay? And then by looking at this, the subject of urbanism, we in Malaysia, we call urban design. Even some of the people in the Lembaga also question why the urban design that you stress in the syllabus does not focus this, does not focus that. Because urban design is not only the 5 elements of Kevin Lynch. It is not only the syntax analysis. It covers a lot of things in urban design. You have to think in terms of urban management. You have to think in terms of governance. Yeah, you have to think in terms of urban services. And that is why some universities, they relate architecture with urban management. Today, in even University of Sumatra Utara, they even have the urban management in architecture program. In Hong Kong, they have urban management in architecture department to relate closely so that the student, at least they hear something about urban management, urban governance. What is the role of the urban governance in terms of to run the city? Because in the year 2025, most of the cities are growing, even like us in Malaysia. by 2025, Kuala Lumpur will become the metropolis. Petaling Jaya, Bangi, Klang, all these have become the feeder city to Kuala Lumpur. In terms of transportation, in terms of Internet of Things, yeah. So we have to think about this as an architect. All right, and it goes back to our education system. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with our education system. So all we need to do is we just monitor it closely, and then even the World Economic Forum, they discuss about all this. Not to say that we forgot about this, but at least we are aware of what's going on. All right, and then we also remember when we equip our graduates with knowledge, with information, how are we going to keep this? Yeah, how are we going to keep this? We're afraid that they are going somewhere because the mobility is what happened in 1930s after the Nazi took power in Germany. At Bauhaus moved to most of the teaching staff, Walter Gropius, Mahamali Goli, and Miss Van der Rohe, and a few more. All those teachers, they moved to America. They took over America overnight because before that, America was taught by those graduates from École des Beaux-Arts. Those graduates from École des Beaux-Arts, they focus very much on classical kind of architecture and so on. Are these going to be the lost generation of scholars? For us, are we ready for this? Yeah? And then if you look at in the West, they're talking about female architects are not being, the numbers are less. Yeah, but in Malaysia, nothing wrong. Most of the lecturers in Malaysia are trained in architecture are female. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with us. And then also we always talking about go back to education, and in terms of architectural education, we are ready for not only the range of knowledge, but we are just afraid of the technology transfer. Because by the year 2025, if you look at Indonesia, yeah, Indonesia now, if I'm not mistaken, is number 6 in terms of economy. Yeah, and then we look at the Palangkaraya. They moved the capital city from Jakarta to Palangkaraya, and then the opportunity for the architects to go there. So if most of our architects move to all around Asian countries, this is another problem with Malaysia in terms of the architecture graduates. And then if we want to change or make some radical strategies, yeah, it has been surveyed and studied by some other universities. Beatrice Colomina, she studied quite extensively from 1990s incidents of the changing of syllabus and so on and so forth. And then she looked at all this, how the radical pedagogy in architecture can be stepped in and looked back by the educationists. And at the same time, how far this radical pedagogy architecture influence the society. Yeah. If we look at the importance of architecture itself in terms of society, it has been used by some other groups of radicals, yeah, some other groups of liberals to demonstrate a certain movement. As we look in America, we look in Latin America, and then even in Europe, yeah, the radical strategies, not only the changing of the architecture education, the radical strategists, they use architectural educations for some other social movement. If you read through all this, what has been written by Beatrice Colomina, you will see some of the influence of architecture. So how important is it? Yeah, it has been used as a subversive actions in the 20th century. And if you, even in the 1930s, yeah, William Curtis wrote about the history of architecture, the movement of this, the Bauhaus to America. It is a certain kind of radical strategies to introduce a new knowledge of modern architecture in America. So by the mobility of these people to America, it changed the pattern of education in America and worldwide, and even Malaysia. Yeah, even Malaysia, where in 1982, yeah, if you still remember the sentiment of buy British last. During that time, Britain was under conservative government of Margaret Thatcher, and then there is some friction between Malaysia and Indonesia and Malaysia and Britain. Then Malaysian government sent the student to America. It's about 1,400 students to America. And then all those who came back from America become lecturers. And then because they cannot, their degree is not recognized by board of Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia at that time, including me. It's not recognized. So we jump into education. We become lecturers, become teachers. You see? And then until late 90s, then there is some radical changes in the Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia that giving us the chance to go for individual assessment. So you see that what are the feelings of those graduates who came back from America not being recognized? These are some of the strategies in education that either it is politics or either it is syllabus, or we do not know. These are the examples of the importance of architectural educations. And then as a result of that, once there are so many lecturers, if you go to UTM, USM, UITM, UTHM, any universities in Malaysia, you check the number of graduates from America become lecturer. It has a very strong implications to the syllabus as well as the pedagogy of architectural educations. All right? Then, always people say that, oh, you graduates from architecture of these schools not fit to work and so on. So this is some of the questions that I raise here. Architectural education always under threat. Yeah, but we should remember the government of Malaysia. Yeah, we always monitor, then we follow what is happening around the world, where that is the reason why we go for OBE in education. And then it has been through the OBE, it is more structured, and then it's more transparent in terms of taxonomy. The rubrics that we use to monitor the students is no longer based on the visual attainment of the lecturers, and then it is very, very systematically followed. But we ask ourselves, do Ivy League University follow OBE? We ask ourselves. Then it is always like chicken and egg in this part of things, you see. And they even questioned in 1990s, as I mentioned to you, they said that is architecture education out of date? These are the writings. The writings that I gone through from Cosby until Boyer report, yeah, in terms of architectural educations, the schools, the redesigning architecture school, the profession that failed the school that failed the professions, yeah, the design studio, the 21st century, what are we looking for? All this, it relates closely with architecture, and we look back, we look again. Malaysian education, where are we? We have our own type and kind of monitoring and maintaining and guaranteeing the standard of our educations. These are the, what I mentioned, in pursuit of excellence. How are we going to pursue all this? We look at what happened in the world, what happened in America, what happened in our Asian countries, and then we ask the system of education ourselves. Yeah, and then if you look at some other discipline, they're using system leaderships. So in architecture, in the future, how are we going to create jobs if one firm can employ 10 graduates, and then the number of graduates from the following universities that I listed earlier, there are so many graduates coming from the universities, and then 12 graduates from can enter into the job market of the firm. Then what happened? There are so many architectural unemployed graduates. Yeah, and then how are we going to create jobs for architects? And then because in some universities, as in America, the diversifications of architectural education, it helps to diversify the opportunity for the students to go beyond becoming just architects. These are the things that we have to think about also in terms of the future syllabus, and also for the Lembaga Architect Malaysia to think as well. And as I mentioned earlier, in the future of the urban living, this is very much related closely with architecture, as aligned with the 9 pillars of IR 4.0. The 9 pillars of IR 4.0 is in terms of the urban living. That is what we are talking about here. We think we are dealing with design of buildings. As cities, more and more cities are being built, and the pace of urbanization is very fast. As I mentioned, Kuala Lumpur, surrounding Kuala Lumpur, there is no border anymore. Putrajaya, Cyberjaya, Bangi, Petaling Jaya, yeah, Kelang, there is no border anymore. So one day Kuala Lumpur will become a megapolis. And then once become a megapolis, the complexity of the city, yeah, in terms of the urban governance, how the city operates, and then how we use the digital appliances, yeah, all this, the Internet of Things within the connection of transportations, in terms of all these services relation to the system in controlling what happened in terms of governance, yeah, and also urban services, yeah, urban infra and infrastructure. These are very, very important. And the government policy, where do the government policy rest here? Yeah, in terms of the floor area ratio, in terms of the fees for all services, non-conventional buildings, and then are we going to maintain 2-story buildings, 4-story buildings for the growing populations in the megapolis in the year 2050? Yeah, 50 years from now, don't be surprised. You see, as in Hong Kong, 7-story building, they demolish it, they build high-rise building up to 50 stories, 60 stories. And then how are we going to connect this building in relation to the services, in relation to the urban governance? What about the requirements of the city councils in terms of the floor area ratio, in terms of the setback, and so on? And then we are talking about the urban farming in the future in the city. And how are we going to integrate this? These are the roles of architects. So if our syllabus, if our thinking, and then if the way we monitor the university based on the traditional method, what happened? Are we ready for this? Yeah? This is a very important for us, for architects. All right? In terms of urban design, as I mentioned, and urbanism, these are what happened. People are talking about reviving the super blocks. And the super blocks here, it is not like the super blocks of the neighborhood concept. The super block here, it is very much related to the smart city, compact city, sustainable cities. Yeah. And then how these super blocks integrate with the transportation, how it integrate with the food supplies, how it integrate with the interconnectivity in terms of the mobility of the transport system, air, land, sea. Are we ready for this? In UAE, they are talking about interconnectivity of the networks of the mobility of the transportation. And then the DIRA side of the Ajman and Dubai, they are connected to the, how they link all those containers from the ships to the airport. All the supplies from the factory, yeah, a factory in Helio, a transport to Ajman. Ajman moved to Dubai by air, by sea. And then even in UAE, they are practicing urban farming. It's not exposed, it is inside the building. Okay? The demand for water, don't be surprised. Northern part of India, there is no more water. Australia, they are relying on desalination. What happened to us? We have excess of water. Banjir kuning, banjir merah, we have excess of water. So another thing is the bottom billion. Are we forgetting the bottom billion? And then where does we fit the bottom billion? As an architect, how you try to fit this bottom billion so that the progress of the nation is aligned with what we are dreaming for in terms of the year 2050 or the year 2070. It is not surprise. When I was at UTM in 1982, when they mentioned about the year 2020, we laugh because we never think about the year 2020. Now we are already in the 21st century, and we even teach the 21st century students. Yeah, these are the issues that I mentioned here that might be not only for the architects to think, maybe some of those people who are involved with the city councils, yeah, and then those people that talking about syllabus, those people who criticize the ability of the lecturers and so on. This I had mentioned earlier about these slides. Those are the things that we have to think back, yeah. And we go back to Malaysia. We attempt to change our syllabus to meet the demand of industry. Why we keep on changing the syllabus? Just to meet the demand of the industry. What's wrong with the syllabus? If the syllabus is not fit, so what is the role of Lambaga? What is the role of MOE? It has been aligned with what I had mentioned in terms of the WAMBP, that is the Bologna process and the Washington Accord. And there's nothing wrong. So if we want to revise, don't revise just the academics. We revise, we involve the city council, we involve the politicians, then we involve those people who are expert in the digital, yeah? And then we are thinking about changing and changing and changing. And the university keep on fighting for the ranking. And then we are fighting for the H index for the lecturers. And then we force the lecturer to do the research. We force the lecturer to write more papers on the Scopus ISI so that the ranking of the university can become the top 100. What happened to the pressure, to the thought and thinking of the lecturers? Then if we look at the formal architectural education in the States, MIT, they started in 1861. Illinois, 1870. Syracuse, Pennsylvania, Columbia, I just mentioned just a few. It takes how many 100 years? For us, it is only 60 years, yeah? It's just 60 years. We are rumbling. It's some sort like the red ant is biting our legs. If we look back, all these universities, okay, it seems that so many years, even at Cornell University, they're still studying how to draw shadows and so on. Like us, some said that this is irrelevant. Okay. And then we teach some lecturers teaching vernacular architecture and then to give thoughts and theories to the students. The Oriental architecture, they say, why we study the Chinese architecture? Why we study the Japanese architecture? It is knowledge. Yeah, just think that it is knowledge. If we keep on asking, it will never end. And then, there is some universities, yeah, in the state, some students, they go to universities just to party, just to enjoy, just to socialize. So if you have this side of thinking, why not? Join architecture, enjoy your life, and go traveling. Yeah? And then some ask, why we need to do measured drawing? We have 3D scanner, we have laser tape, we have digital appliances, and so on. So, okay. So if we respond to all these kind of questions, then that's why some people say that is architecture profession dying. Yeah. So these are the things that I mentioned here. And then even in some other professions, if you look at the inventions of computers and so on, it gives jobs opportunity for the people and whatnot. It started from those group of people who came from the hippie nations. Yeah. If you look at the background of Steve Jobs, you look at the background of Bill Gates. Yeah, most of these people, they're grown up with hippie kind of thoughts. They become creative people, all right? And these people, yeah, they just use some sort like how to really manage our mind. Don't think that with a Bachelor of Architecture, you want to be architect. You can do a lot of things with it. Yeah, just be positive in terms of this. And okay, I try to skip since we're already going to reaching the ultimate time right now.
Prof, yeah? I can give you another 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Alia. Thank you very much. And then, as I mentioned, are we going to practice a system of leaderships, yeah, in architecture? This I mentioned earlier. The impact of architecture according to time. We have to look at the preparation of the future, and then at the critical thinking, and also the approach that we think in terms of education, in terms of job opportunities, in terms of politics, and then not only architecture, just you came out, become a dreamers, and you blame everybody. No, yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. think that some of the architects, they are inventors. There are some people, if you look at the some of the workers at Les Copec, those who produce Upin and Ipin, some of the workers are architects, but they have a creative mind. You look at the cartoon they produce, it is not similar with the SpongeBob. The SpongeBob, they do not know how to draw, you see, as compared to Upin and Ipin with a very good background, the Malay house, the scenery of the kampung and so on. The message, it is very clear. And then what happened to the green technology that we're going to introduce in the future? How far we architects understand this, okay? Our architect can become an advisor to the technology in all fields related to all this kind of system that is related to the buildings, okay? As I mentioned here, future is not a conservative exploitation of the past. Then direct impact due to the changes in education. Yeah, these are some of the issues that we might just look again. And then for the conclusions, these are the conclusions. Are we ready for the change? There is no paradigm for us to forecast what is the future. Yeah, but we always remember that even in 1963, Buckminster Fuller, he mentioned that the specialist in comprehensive design, yeah, artists, inventors, and all this that we go through, and it all started in education. And the importance of education, it's quite hard for us to debate on that. And then for us in architecture, be prepared for the change, because the change is inevitable. Because the change is not only a change what happened to the world, it is a change in attitude and acceptance and our preparations for the change. Yeah? And then are we ready? And then in terms of the law and order in Malaysia, and then in terms of what we are going to face another 5 years from now, in terms of politics, in terms of job markets, yeah? And then right now we are at the brink of the pandemic. We can't do much, but we are hoping for the best, yeah? But you have to remember that, as mentioned by the rector of University Islam Antarabangsa, he said that we made rules, not merely following benchmark. Yeah, as a humanity, we are depressed. Yeah, there are some of us about aggressions and even suicide. But remember, we are serving men. As an architect, you are not only serving architecture. Yeah, you are serving the society, you are serving the nations, you are serving the world itself. Yeah, this is part of the things that I mentioned here. And then we have to look also at the design of a design discipline in architecture. Do you need radical change for that? And then is the studio, we want it to be the old way as a traditional way, or if we can work from home, why we attend the class? Or we attend the class just to socialize as a human, to get in touch with your friends, yeah, community, and maybe in the future, the age group of learners is not restricted. As in America, there are some people, even if you remember, some architects, yeah, they start late at the age of 30, they become architects. Then some of them, they're so passionate about architecture, due to some other driving force. Before they take architecture, they take some other courses like philosophy, yeah, cognitive, and so on. So to conclude this, I think that I still believe that we are relying on PAM and LAM to safeguard the professions. Because if LAM and PAM do not safeguard the profession architects, architecture is just like any other discipline. As in Indonesia, in Pakistan, there are development officer taking over the role of architects. Architects become the worker to the development officer. This development officer, he knows how to link with the politician, he knows how to link with the council, but architects become a mere artist. So I still believe that Lembaga Arkitek Malaysia, Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia still play a very important role in terms of the syllabus, in terms of the professions, in terms of the university provider. Yeah. Lastly, I would like to apologize, please. Mohon maaf kalau tersilap bahasa. Yeah. And then just remember that the modern image of the future may appear today as naive, not frightening. Their inquiry helped to advance our understanding of urbanism, technology, growth, and many other subjects, and place architecture in a leading role in society. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. That was an insightful presentation. And it was great to hear your thoughts on academic excellence in a way that everyone could easily understand and relate to. So the platform now open to questions. We want to address as many questions as we can, and we hope that many will participate in this Q&A to enhance the liveliness of this session. Please click on the Q&A button to post your questions, or you may use the chat box. We have one question here from the participant, but I will start the first question to kickstart the Q&A session, yeah? Here's my question to you, yeah, Prof?
Okay, yeah.
All right. Research, yeah, suggests that there is a strong emphasis on the pursuit of academic excellence in current educational reforms in both local and international contexts, and therefore continuous efforts shall be placed in order to re-examine what may constitute academic excellence. So in your personal opinion, what is your definition of academic excellence in architectural education? So in other words, like what is good architectural education?
Okay, thank you very much. What I believe in good architectural education, it starts from not only the university itself. University is only education provider. It is the lecturers. Because I believe that there are some lectures that you remember until today is because of his passionate towards knowledge, and then his passion towards what he tries to deliver to make you to understand. It is not only because of the theory or the new theory and so on, but how he deliver the knowledge. It is based on the accumulation of knowledge itself. Yeah, the accumulation of the knowledge itself. It is how wide the knowledge the lecturer or the teacher, he himself understands on a certain issues of the subject. For example, the history of architecture, where he wants to deliver the Islamic architecture in the syllabus. And then what does he understand by the word Islamic? Maybe he's not only focusing on the visual images of what is Islamic, such as arches, dome, and so on. Maybe he can relate with some of other stories, or he relates with the some of the, for example, poem. Yeah? And then there are lecturers who has that kind of touch, you know. It is not because that, or when you ask him 1 + 1, he will answer you directly. No, there are some lecturers who are very articulate in terms of knowledge. This is what we are looking for in most of the universities. And then, sorry to say, when I want to do my master's in architecture, master in community urban design, I was offered 3 places. There is UC Berkeley, University of Arizona, TAM, and then Kansas. And at Kansas, there is one professor who introduced the theory of phenomenology in urban design, Professor David Simon. And then I asked my professor at Washington, and then he said, you go to Kansas. I said, why? Nobody knows where Kansas is. But he said, David Simon is there. It's very true. The way he articulates the term phenomenology, it is not based on Merleau-Ponty. It is not based on Heidegger. It is based on certain kind, how he relates some of these ideas and theories for the people to understand what is phenomenology. And in terms of from cognitive to behavioral, to relate in terms of visual. And when he discussed the visual impact of phenomenology in making a place, he relates with Lynch, he relates with Transick, he relates with this Gale, and he relates with Christina Nordin, and so on. And then when you look at this matter, when you read books like The Death and Life of Great American Cities, I say, what the hell is this story all about? It is this is a critics of planning. But when you look closely and relate with what happened, some of other writers observe this matter closely, then you understand. So if we have this kind of lecturers who are very articulate in certain things, in UTM at that time, yeah, our late Cik Razak, our late Ash'ari Omar, yeah, and now still our Professor Emeritus, I was Alia Saleh, I was there with him at UTM. And then even at USM right now, there are some lecturers who are very passionate. My colleague, Associate Professor Dr. Muna, yeah, they're very passionate about teaching. It's not that easy to find this type of people right now. That is the core of, that can give an injection to the system of education that encourage the continuity of architectural education for the people to really understand architecture. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. You did. Thank you so much, Prof. But can I just continue with that question?
Yes.
Question 1, and I have question 1A, which is related to your answer. You're talking about passionate lecturers, right? The quality
Yes.
of lecturers that we used to have, and now the new generation might not have the same quality as the senior lecturers, back in the days, I would say. Is it because of the pressure of the management of the university or the institution to ask us to produce,
Yes,
papers, research, etc.? And can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, this is a very controversial question. Quite a number of the lecturers don't agree. Some of the even our dean also, we discuss about these matters. Yeah, if the amount of time we have to allocate for research, the amount of time for us to allocate for a community, the amount of time for us to allocate for the papers, the amount of time for us for the conference, and then for the international network and so on, we have only 24 hours. 8 hours, that is the most, eligible time for us to spend for the working time. And then if that we in 8 hours, how many subjects you teach per day? And then the time you have to spend for your family and so on. What happened to our society in the future? Yeah? Or otherwise, you see, like America in 1950s, the baby boomers in the 1950s. The baby boomers in 1950s, because of the technology, the chase after the American dreams, the progress of the nations, the changes of the these advancements of the life of the people with the fast cars, color TV, washing machines, and all these chains of stores, Radio Shacks, McDonald's, and so on. What happened to the society of America today? And then the same with us. If we stick to this kind of paper chase and to increase the ranking of the university, we forgot about the quality of education to our students. And then we base on the OBE, because OBE, sorry to say, we can manipulate that. I tell you frankly, I can manipulate the PLO. I can manipulate this CLO, because at the end of the day, there is an audit. They want to audit either the student achieve or not the CLO. We can manipulate that. So how real is the thing? That is those people who produce this kind of system, they have to understand also. And then what's wrong with the education in the 80s? The education in the 80s, they produce lecturers today. You see, if you go to UTM, you go to USM, you go to ITM, those lecturers that become the senior lecturers, those who become the professors today came from that university, especially UTM, UITM, and USM. Are they not good enough? Because of they didn't write the paper. They're not good to the university. Those are the lecturers that produce the university that can fit into the ranking today. You see? If you look at UKM, UTM, USM, UM is quite new in terms of architecture. Yeah, those universities falls into the ranking university because of those lecturers as well. But if we keep on giving pressure to the lecturer doing this, us produce papers. Even just a few days ago, Ministry of Education gave us a list of unrecognized Scopus and ISI journal. It's about 100 over journals not recognized by the Ministry of Education. In Asia, Africa, yeah, and Middle East. So, what's wrong? What happened to those who had been entering the Google Scholars H index? And then those who had written the articles and being reviewed by so many scholars and then cited by so many scholars, are their articles not good? Are they giving us a false statement? This is quite controversial. You know. Sometimes I myself, after teaching 32, 33 years right now, since 1988, I joined USM until today, because I enjoy teaching very much. Then even I told my dean that I enjoy teaching, not interested with other things. So because you want to deliver, that is, but one more thing, Nurul, yeah? As I mentioned to you, it is important to look back. Then if you want to be a lecturer, it is best that the transitions of the qualification is important. After MArch, according to Dato Amir Hamzah, he said that MArch is not a change of nomenclature. Remember that. It is not just a change of nomenclature. It is the advancement of architectural education in relation to what we are expecting from the students, because we are not producing technicians. We are producing scholars. And in some of these scholars, they want to be a lecturer. It is best for them to go to intermediate masters, to look at some of the theory that they want to focus, that interests them before they go into PhD. And then another thing that I would like to advise is avoid inbreeding. Yeah, avoid inbreeding. Your bachelor from USM, your master's from USM, your PhD from USM. Avoid that. It is best that you diversify your knowledge to other universities. You go to you go to UKM, because maybe it gives us a spice of knowledge to you. Yeah, don't just stay in one place. I hope that is good enough.
That's really good. Thanks, Prof. So we have a couple of questions from the participants. The first question from Bashira Muhammad Baha. I'll just read the comment, as well. Thank you for such a startling sharing. Some university has started to diversify students' education experience through graphics, photography, and interior courses. But could this lead to our program being dissolved in the future?
Yeah, I saw the questions earlier. Yeah, it is great. In some universities in the States also they introduce a photography, and then from photography they extract the object for the students to understand to be used in the sketches and then used in the model making. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Alice from UTM, the first project when I was external examiner, she did that. It's very successful. Because for the first year students, it is very, very successful. Some students, those from sciences, yeah, they cannot visualize in terms of imaginative things. They can reason things. Some students from science, they can reason. They are very good students when it comes to reasoning. But through this process, they can interpret from seeing things and learning how to interpret things from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, and then become a sculptural. And I think this type of ideas, it seems it works quite well. Yeah.
Okay.
Then when you, for example, when you interpret that both are the understandings of the form and then how not only the configuration of the form, the arrangement in terms of sequence, in terms of this, you try to relate with the principle of design when you criticize that to the students, and the students slowly absorb this. I think this is a very good idea. It's very successful. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Another question. I think this will be our last question, or maybe another one. Okay, it's 4 minutes to 5:30. Okay. Would love to see the lime green book that you have mentioned. Is it available to everyone to view? What are the area of architectural study being looked into or focused on by LAM at the moment?
Thank you very much. Yeah. Lime Green Book, that is the manual for the accreditation. It is available at the Lembaga Architect Malaysia. If as a lecturer, it is best that you buy the book, you look through, and then it is very, very clear. I salute Professor Said Iskandar for taking his time with a few others. Yeah, Prof. Mustafa, yeah, Prof. Rahim, and all those panels from the Lembaga, they took the trouble to do this guidance. It is very clear. The purpose of this book, yeah, it is not a Bible for us. It is some sort of like a guidance. Through this guidance, they break it into what are the culture, the subjects related to culture and technology, what are the subjects related to design, what are the subjects related to social, and then from that, then you try to fit how many % of these subjects relevant for architecture courses, for architecture degree, in order to get accreditation, how many % for design, how many % for social, and then from all these, and then we can look back. And then are the subjects or the syllabus that we teach the students conform to the PLO of the program? And then is the PLO that is being superseded by the CLO are really fit into the what we are looking for the subject, specific subjects. To me, it is quite useful to me. Yeah, when we want to run the architecture program, then when I would like to request for accreditation, it is a very transparent, yeah, very good guidance, and at least it regulates some things that are known to us. It is available at Lembaga Architect Malaysia. I think you can request from the people at the Lembaga. Yeah. I hope I answered that questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. So the last question before we end this session.
Okay.
Based on your presentation, you are very optimistic about the future of architectural education in Malaysia. That's what I can feel.
Yes.
Where do you think we will be in 10 years?
In 10 years from now, it is based on what I mentioned here to you is the role of the Lembaga Architect Malaysia and the role of Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia. If the Lembaga Architect Malaysia and Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia, they are not serious about maintaining or to regulate the profession of architecture, the education of architecture itself will be in haywire. You see, it is because they work hand in hand with the Ministry of Education. If you want to apply for accreditation, you have to go through the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education also, they rely on the Lembaga Architect Malaysia because the Lembaga Architect Malaysia, they knew about the role of the professions. The Ministry of Education, they only knew the quality assurance based on what is requested by the accord. Yeah. So whatever situation it is still the role of Lembaga and the role of PAM. And then it goes back to the situation of politics, the situation of economy, and also how serious the architects with what's happening around the world in terms of climate change, in terms of the bottom billion, in terms of the rapid urbanization, in terms of population explosion, and then in terms of post-globalization. Because post-globalization, it is no longer the issue of globalization. Yeah? It is going beyond that. We look at what happened to the world powers, what happened to Russia, what happened to China, what happened to America. Yeah? What happened that divide all these three powers with the countries below us in terms of resources. That's why I said to you, as an architect, don't just look at architecture per se. You have to be sensitive with what's going on around you. And then we are interested in urban farming. We are interested in smart cities. How well we integrate all this in terms of all the factors that I mentioned earlier. And then the people in the city council, especially in Kuala Lumpur, in terms of governance, in terms of government, in terms of urban management, how do they really integrate with all the technologies and the advancements of architecture as well as the advancements of technology in the future? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. So ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our session. We would like to say thanks to our honorable presenter for the informative, insightful, and inspiring presentation. It was a pleasure to have you with us, Prof. I really learned a lot. And to Pam for sponsoring and organizing this event. And not to forget our attendees, thank you for attending. We hope that the range of perspectives discussed here will contribute usefully to the ongoing discussion on this subject and will offer some valuable insights into architectural education in Malaysia. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Welcome. Welcome. Assalamualaikum. Anselm, I still remember you. Bye-bye.